Hello students, this is Vikas Mahajan and I welcome all of you in our foundation course SY BCom semester 3. Chapter number 2, Constitutional Provisions and Laws. In this unit, the points that we are going to discuss are the Domestic Violence Act 2005, Vishakha Guidelines for Preventing Sexual Harassment at Workplace 1997, the Child Labor Prohibition and Regulation Act 1986, Persons with Disabilities Act 1995, Equal Opportunities, Protection of Rights and Full Participation. The first one, the Domestic Violence Act 2005. The phenomenon of domestic violence is widely prevalent but has remained largely visible in the public domain. Presently, where a woman is subjected to cruelty by her husband or his relatives, it is an offense under Section 498A. Under Section 498A of the Indian Penal Code. The civil law does not, however, address this phenomenon in its entirety. It is, therefore, proposed to enact a law keeping in view the rights guaranteed under Article 14, 15 and 21 of the Constitution to provide for a remedy under the civil law which is intended to protect the women from being victims of domestic violence and to prevent the occurrence of domestic violence in the society. The bill seeks to provide for the following. Number one, it covers those women who are or have been in a relationship with the abuser, where both parties have lived together in a shared household and are related by consanguinity, marriage, or through a relationship in the nature of marriage or adoption. In addition, relationships with family members living together as a joint family are also included, even those women who are sisters, widows, mothers, single women, or living with the abuser are entitled to legal protection under the proposed legislation. However, whereas the bill enables the wife or the female living in a relationship in the nature of marriage to file a complaint under the proposed enactment against any relative of the husband or the male partner, it does not enable any female relative of the husband or the male partner to file a complaint against the wife or the female partner. Second one, it defines the expression domestic violence to include actual abuse or threat or abuse that is physical, sexual, verbal, emotional or economic. Harassment by way of unlawful dowry demands to the woman or her relatives would also be covered under this definition. Third one, it provides for the rights of women to secure housing. It also provides for the right of a woman to reside in her matrimonial home or shared household, whether or not she has any title or rights in such home or household. This right is secured by a residence order which is passed by the magistrate. Fourth one, it empowers the magistrate to pass protection orders in favor of the aggrieved person to prevent the respondent from aiding or committing an act of domestic violence or any other specified act. Entering a workplace or any other place frequented by the aggrieved person, attempting to communicate with her, isolating any assets used by both the parties and causing violence to the aggrieved person, her relatives, or others who provide her assistance from the domestic violence. Fifth one, it provides for appointment of protection officers and registration of non-governmental organizations, that is NGOs, as service providers for providing assistance to the aggrieved person and with respect to her medical examination, obtaining legal aid, safe shelter, etc. Now regarding this, there are some Vishakha guidelines for preventing sexual harassment at workplace 1997. Let us discuss. The Supreme Court in the case of Vishakha versus the state of Rajasthan laid down for the first time strictures that aimed at protecting a woman employee by giving her right to a safe, healthy working environment. In the decision, the court also defined sexual harassment and recognized it to be a paramount violation of human rights. The court thereby laid down certain mandatory and binding guidelines to be followed by all workplaces belonging to the public and private sectors and made it mandatory for every employer to ensure a safe, harassment-free working environment for the women. Now we will discuss the Vishakha case. Okay. Bhauri Devi was a village level social worker or a Sathi of a development program run by the state government of Rajasthan, fighting against child and multiple marriages in villages. As part of this work, Bhauri, with assistance from the local administration, tried to stop the marriage of Ram Karan Gujjar's infant daughter, who was less than 1 year old. The marriage took place nevertheless, and Bhauri earned the ire of the Gujjar family. She was subjected to social boycott, and in September 1992, 5 men, including Ram Karan Gujjar, gang raped Bhauri in front of her husband while they were working in their fields. The days that followed were filled with hostility and humiliation for Bhauri and her husband. The only male doctor in the primary health center refused to examine Bhauri, and the doctor at Jaipur only confirmed her age without making any reference to rape in his medical report. At the police station, the women constables taunted Bhauri throughout the night. It was past midnight when the policemen asked Bhauri to leave her lehenga behind as a evidence and return to her village. She was left with only her husband's blood-stained dhoti to wear. Their pleas to let them sleep in the police station at night were turned down. The trial court acquitted the accused, but Bhauri was determined to fight further and get justice. She said that she had nothing to be ashamed of and that the men should be ashamed due to what they had done. Her fighting spirit inspired fellow Sathis and women groups countrywide. In the month that followed, they launched a concerted campaign for justice for Bhauri. On December 1993, the High Court said, it is a case of gang rape which was committed out of vengeance. As part of this campaign, The groups had filed a petition in the Supreme Court of India under the name Vishakha, asking the court to give certain directions regarding the sexual harassment that women face at the workplace. The result is the Supreme Court judgment, which came on 13th August 1997 and gave the Vishakha guidelines. Now, please listen carefully the guidelines issued by the court. They are: number one, it shall be the duty of the employer or other responsible persons in workplace or other institutions to prevent or deter the act of sexual harassment and to provide the procedures for the resolution, settlement, or prosecution of acts of sexual harassment by taking all steps required. Second one, the rules or regulations of the government and the public sector bodies relating to conduct and discipline should include rules or regulations prohibiting sexual harassment and provide for appropriate penalties in such rules against the offender. Third one, where such conduct amounts to a specific offense under the Indian Penal Code or under any law, the employer shall initiate appropriate action in accordance with law by making a complaint with an appropriate authority. Fourth one, an appropriate complaint mechanism should be created in the organization for redressal of the complaint made by the victim. The complaints committee will be headed by a woman and not less than half of its members shall be women. India is rapidly advancing in its developmental goals and more women are joining the workforce. It is the duty of the state to provide for the well-being and respect of its citizens to prevent frustration, low self-esteem, insecurity, and emotional disturbance, which in turn could affect business efficacy, leading to loss of production and loss of reputation for the organization or the employer. In fact, the recognition of the right to protection against sexual harassment is an intrinsic component of the protection of women's human rights. It is also a step towards providing women independence, equality of opportunity, and the right to work with dignity. Now the next point that we are going to discuss is the child labor. In bracket Prohibition and Regulation Act 1986. Child Labor Prohibition and Regulation Act 1986 was the culmination of effort and ideas that emerged from the deliberations and recommendations of various committees on child labor. Significant among them are the National Commission on Labor. The duration is 1966 to 69. Then Gurupada Swami Committee on Child Labor 1979. Sanat Mehta Committee 1984 and others. The basic objective of the Child Labor Prohibition and Regulation Act 1986 is to ban employment of children below the age of 14 years in factories, mines and hazardous, that is dangerous, employments, and to regulate the working condition of children in other employments. The Act, number one, bans the employment of children, that is, those who have not completed their 14th year in a specified occupations and process. Second one, the Act regulates the working conditions of children in occupations where they are not prohibited from working. Next one, the Act lays down penalties for employment of children in violation of the provisions of this Act and other acts which forbid the employment of children. The Act brings out uniformity in the definition of child in related laws. Section 5 of the Child Labour Prohibition and Regulation Act 1986 provides for the constitution of a Child Labour Technical Advisory Committee to advise the central government for the purpose of addition of occupations and processes to the schedule of the Act. More recently, employment of children as domestic servants and in dhabas, this is the crude name of the hotels, has been banned from October 2006. It means that the children cannot work as domestic servant and they cannot work on dhabas also. And this has been banned from October 2006. The last point in this lecture that we are going to discuss is the Persons with Disabilities Act 1995, Equal Opportunities, Protection of Rights and Full Participation. We have already seen all the vulnerable groups in our chapter number 1, and in this chapter we are discussing all those points which are connected with vulnerability and giving the acts and protection. The Persons with Disabilities Act. Okay. The Persons with Disabilities, Equal Opportunities, Protection of Rights and Full Participation Act 1995 has come into enforcement on February 7, 1996 as an important landmark and significant step in the direction to ensure full participation of persons with disabilities in the nation building. The Act provides preventive and promotional aspects of rehabilitation like education, employment and vocational training, reservation, research and manpower development, creation of barrier-free environment, rehabilitation of such persons, unemployment allowance, special insurance scheme for the disabled employee and establishment of homes for persons with severe disabilities, etc. Main provision of the Act are: number 1, prevention and early detection of disabilities. Surveys, investigations and research shall be conducted to ascertain the cause of occurrence of disability. Various measures shall be taken to prevent disabilities. Staff at the primary health center shall be trained to assist in this work. All the children shall be screened once in a year for identifying at-risk cases. Awareness campaigns shall be launched and sponsored to disseminate information. Measures shall be taken for prenatal, perinatal and postnatal care of the mother and child. Second one, education. Every child with disability shall have the rights to free education till the age of 18 years in the integrated schools or special schools. Appropriate transportation, removal of architecture barriers, restructuring of curriculum and modifications in the examination system shall be ensured for the benefit of children with disabilities. Children with disabilities shall have the right to free books, scholarships, uniform and other learning material. Special schools for children with disabilities shall be equipped with vocational training facilities Non-formal education shall be promoted for children with disabilities. Third one is employment. Suitable schemes shall be formulated for the training and welfare of persons with disabilities. Providing equality in employment is also equally important. Fourth one is affirmative action. Allotment of land shall be made at the concessional rates to the people with disabilities for house, business, special recreational centers, special schools and factories by entrepreneurs with disability. Fifth one, non-discrimination. Public buildings, rail compartments, buses, ships and aircrafts will be designed to give easy access to disabled people in all public places and in waiting rooms. Toilets shall be wheelchair accessible. Braille and sound symbols are also to be provided in lifts. All the places of public utility shall be made barrier free by providing ramps. Sixth one, grievance redressal. In case of violation of rights as prescribed in that act, people with disabilities may move an application to Chief Commissioner for persons with disabilities in the center or Commissioner for persons with disabilities in states. In this way, in this unit, today we discussed some of the points: the Domestic Violence Act 2005, the Vishakha Guidelines for Preventing Sexual Harassment at Workplace 1997, the Child Labour Prohibition and Regulation Act 1986, Persons with Disabilities Act 1995, Equal Opportunities, Protection of Rights and Full Participation. We will meet again in the next lecture. Till then, take care, bye and thank you all of you.